Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Waterloo Engineering Future Applicants webinar. My name is Ryan Peer. I'm the Marketing and Recruitment Specialist here for the Faculty of Engineering at the University of Waterloo. So basically what that means is that I'm a future applicants, future students' main touch point when it comes to finding out information about all things Waterloo Engineering. It could be the admission process, it could be co-op. You can reach out to me and I can connect you with a current student in a program of interest or a faculty member, or we can do an information session one-on-one if you like as well. And I'm joined here today with a couple of our current students, Sahar and Leah. So Sahar, if you want to give yourself an introduction.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Sahar. I'm currently a fourth year management engineering student at the University of Waterloo. Super excited to be here tonight.
Hi everyone, my name is Leah. I just finished my 1A in environmental engineering and I'm currently on co-op. It's great to see you all this evening.
Okay, thank you to the both of you, and we'll get started. But before we do, I'd like to acknowledge that the University of Waterloo is located on the traditional territory of the Neutral, Anishinaabe, and Haudenosaunee peoples. We're located on something that's called the Haldeman Tract, and it includes 6 miles on either side of the Grand River. And then we're actively working towards reconciliation across our campus through research, learning, teaching, and community building, and it's all centralized within our Indigenous Initiatives Office. So to get started, this is the big question, and a lot of current high school students may not fully know what exactly engineering is because there generally isn't a course that's called engineering. You're taking courses that are part of engineering, but there isn't something that's actually called engineering physically. And so to give you a sense of what exactly it is, we've got 2 very different definitions. One is from the Professional Engineers of Ontario. It's very complicated, and it states that it's the application of scientific, economic, social, and practical knowledge in order to invent, build, design, maintain, and improve structures, machines, devices, systems, and processes. And that's a lot to take in. I don't expect anybody to memorize that. And so we've got a much simpler application, which is how I like to describe engineering to prospective students. And it's essentially just the practical application of science and math to solve problems. Engineers are professional problem solvers, and they use the knowledge that they've gained, knowledge that they have of the surroundings, and particularly math and science, and they use that to solve problems. So as far as science versus engineering, science is really focused on the universe through observation and experimentation. And so they're really about discovery, whereas engineering takes what science has discovered and they apply it to solve practical problems. Our degree is actually called the Bachelor of Applied Science, and that's exactly what it is. It's applied science. And so science asks the why, whereas engineering asks the how. Scientists use experiments to test their theories, while engineers use prototype devices to test theirs. Going back a little bit with regards to our history here within engineering and the University of Waterloo, engineering was a founding faculty at the University of Waterloo. We were founded back in 1957, and all students at that time studied engineering, and they were also 100% co-op. And so that was very novel at that time. Co-op wasn't really a thing. We were the first institution to introduce it, and it was really based on the current environment where technology was really exploding. The engineers at the time that were developing these new technologies didn't really have the practical skills to build or create with their own ideas and their own blueprints. They had to contract that out to people who had that skill set. And so with the increase in technology, it was becoming more complicated to really follow those blueprints. The founding members of our university recognized that, and so they wanted to bridge that gap and create an engineer who was able to build and create with their own ideas. They didn't just have the academic knowledge, they had the physical skills to develop with their own ideas. And so that's how co-op was born, and it was really a product of the current environment at that time. And co-op is really, it's the foundation, obviously, of the faculty, but also of the university, being the largest co-op institution in the world. This is probably the most important slide that I want people to take away when you're looking at Waterloo Engineering and potential other engineering institution, is that We're just very different, and it's really the sum of our differences that make our education unique. And so, number one, we're direct entry. We do not have a general first year. So students will be applying to a very specific program, and you'll be studying program-specific courses right from day one. And so it's really important to keep that in mind, because you need to do your research up front to be able to correctly decide on the engineering program that you want to apply to. We also are 100% co-op. And so all engineering students are automatically in co-op. It's a mandatory component for graduation. Students will need to complete 5 of 6 co-op terms, so up to 2 years of co-op experience by the time you graduate, and you're going to be starting right away in your first year. And so that really ties into the next point, is really we're all about that hands-on collaborative experiential learning. And so not just learning in the classroom, but applying that knowledge in actual physical settings. And co-op is obviously one component. We'll cover some other components, but that is a big emphasis for the university, and especially for Waterloo Engineering, is that hands-on experiential approach. We are the largest faculty of engineering in Canada. We've got 14 different engineering programs, plus the School of Architecture under the engineering umbrella. And so lots to choose from. Again, that's why doing the research is very important. And obviously, if you're here today, that's a very good starting point. We've got typical engineering programs, more common ones like civil engineering and chemical engineering, but we've also expanded to more niche programs like geological engineering, which is really engineering earth materials like rocks, water, and soil, and other multidisciplinary programs or interdisciplinary programs like mechatronics, which is a combination of mechanical, electrical, there's some systems design, some computer, and even some software engineering. And it's all about building smart machines, everything from autonomous vehicles, drones and robots, to even your smartphones. With the 14 programs, though, I do want to emphasize that we believe we've got something that is right for everyone. It really just depends on your interests. Now, with engineering in Canada, any accredited engineering program is bound by the Canadian Engineering Accreditation Board, and their criteria can be called restrictive with regards to the curriculum. Each program will need to take a certain number of specified courses. So the idea for that is by the time they graduate, they've got a broad range of knowledge in math and science, and they'll be able to use that to engineer problems across industries and not specific to their discipline. So they're graduating with as an engineer first and foremost, and then whatever type of engineer that they studied second. Now, having said that, we do have ways for students to customize their degree outside of the required courses that they need to take. Some of them are options that we have, and some of our options are supplement the engineering programs in an engineering field that might be outside of their particular program of study, or they could be options that are even outside the faculty, such as society, technology, and values. So having 14 different engineering programs and the School of Architecture, it can be daunting trying to find the engineering program that is right for you. And so you really got to kind of step back and get a sense of the differences between engineering and science and what it is that you're passionate about. You have to look forward if you can at this point. Sometimes it's a little too early, but at least start researching about the sort of careers that you might be interested in and how that fits into the different programs that we offer. Now, we do recognize this can be daunting as a high school student to try to choose an engineering program that you're going to study in for your time here and eventually follow a career in that particular path. And so some of our resources that we have to help with this process are ambassadors. Both Sahir and Leah are two of our ambassadors. They're excellent resources. So they're current students that you're able to reach out to and talk with and ask questions that you might have. One of the areas is called ENS Chats, and you can request an ENS Chat. In fact, if you were just to Google Waterloo ENS Chats, it's the first search that comes up. And you fill out a form, request a specific program that you might be interested in, and we'll pair you with a current student in that particular program, and you get a chance to just sit, pick their brain, ask all kinds of questions, get a sense of co-op, the program that they're studying, what they want to do, why they chose that particular program. An excellent resource. I certainly recommend taking advantage of it. And then if you're just getting started with the information gathering process and all this research about the engineering programs that are out there. Another excellent resource is our engineering program compatibility quiz. Again, just Google Waterloo Engineering quiz and it's the first one to pop up. It is a preference-based quiz where based on how you answer these preference type questions, like would you prefer to work inside or outside, or would you rather work with your hands or on a computer? Based on how you answer these questions, it'll align you with the top engineering programs that are most closely aligned with your answers and your preferences. And it'll give you reasons why, as well as other resources such as the first year courses, career and co-op examples. So an excellent place to get started in that information gathering process. And with that, I'm going to pass it off to Seher, and she will talk about co-op.
Awesome. So next, let's talk a little bit about cooperative education, or more simply known as co-op. So as Ryan mentioned previously, co-op is mandatory for all Waterloo engineering students. And it's a great way to kind of just get the experience to explore a variety of different career opportunities. In fact, one of the biggest reasons why I chose Waterloo Engineering is because of their amazing co-op program. And in fact, now I'm on my 5th co-op term currently, but before, when I was starting out, I always knew I was really interested in technology, but I didn't know exactly like which role I wanted to do. So throughout each of my co-op experiences till date, I've had the opportunity to work as more of a project management type of role in QA, in software development, and in data science, to really kind of understand and develop skill sets across the board and kind of figure out how each piece of the puzzle works together. So, like I said, it's definitely a great way to develop important skills that'll help you like pretty much all your life. Co-op is also a great place to acquire professional contacts and build your reputation, as you have exposure to so many different smart minds working in a variety of different companies. And you definitely gain a competitive advantage upon graduation. I know a lot of people who go to other universities and who have to kind of do the job hunt on their own if they're looking for summer jobs, or a lot of people first jobs is actually like their full-time role once they graduate. But being able to kind of have at least 6 terms kind of completed is a great competitive advantage, and makes you just that much more employable as you reach the end. And finally, it's a great way to finance your education. All of the co-ops are paid, so it's a great way to kind of help pay off that tuition while you're still in school, and kind of help lower your student debt. So with that, so there's different study and work sequences for every engineering. Some you kind of indicate your preference. Some engineering disciplines just have one stream. So here are 2 sample options of stream 4 and stream 8. And all a stream is really just the coordination between your study and your work terms. So everyone entering a Waterloo engineering degree, their first fall term will be a study term. After that, depending on your sequence, you will either be doing another study term, or you will be going on co-op. Also, while you're on a study term, you will be applying for jobs actively. Now, one of the most common questions that we get is, how do we start preparing for co-op? Because it can seem like a really daunting task when you're coming in. Now, the biggest and best answer to this is to start building up your resume right in high school. Any work experience is truly valuable, whether that be any part-time jobs you currently have, any volunteering experience, any extracurriculars you do, any side projects. All of these things really add up and will help you kind of get that first job when you're looking for it. Another great advice is to really ask your family and friends for any advice that they may have, any information that they can provide. For example, how do they structure their resumes and cover letters? How do they approach interviews? Maybe they can help you with some mock interview tips. What do they look for in an employer? And what do they think are your employable skills? Which is great because I'm sure your close ones know the most about you and can definitely help you in that aspect. Another point I'd like to highlight is that it's never too soon to start networking. It's really important to build your career and to build your network as early as you can. So whether this be making professional connections, reaching out to current students, reaching out to employers, different things like that to kind of help guide your career journey. So now we're going to talk a little bit about co-op and your future career. So throughout this, there have been many successful alumni who have graduated from Waterloo Engineering. And so let's go through a few of the alumni profiles that we have here today. So on the left, the first one is of Hugo, who was a computer engineering graduate in 2009, and he's currently the CFO at Aya Gold and Silver Company. Now, as you can see, this is definitely a non-traditional career path that he's taken, but nevertheless, that really shows kind of the breadth of experience that an engineering degree can provide you with. As you can see, some of his co-op jobs has included product marketing engineer, software development, product manager. So it's very common to be able to explore and try different opportunities to really figure out what you want to do in the future when you graduate and are starting to work full time. On the right, we have a systems design engineering graduate in 2019. So her first co-op was in computer programming, along with several of her other co-ops. And then her last co-op was a program manager at Microsoft, which then kind of led to her transition to working at Google as the director of product management. So kind of a more linear path that we see here today. The third profile that we have is of Jyothi Bevan, who is a chemical engineering a master's graduate and is currently the senior manager at the Ontario Power Generation. So you can see she's kind of chosen to stick with kind of her engineering discipline and has also completed several co-ops in this area. And then finally, on the right, we have someone from the Department of Civil and Environmental Engineering, Leanne, who is currently the Senior Pavement Management Engineering at Stantec and has done her civil and, her bachelor's in civil engineering as well as master's in civil engineering. And again, has done many different co-ops in these areas. So as you can see, no career path is the same. You know, doing a Waterloo engineering degree will really give you that exposure to try out various different roles, various different companies, and really pave your own path. And with that, I will pass it back to Ryan to talk a bit about admissions.
Thank you very much, Sahar. I know a lot of you, some of you are entering your applicant year, and this is going to be on top of mind. Others might be a little bit younger, and you want to see how you could possibly get set up for admissions and what the requirements might be. So to get started, the required courses I'm going to cover are part of the Ontario curriculum. And if you're studying in a curriculum that's outside of Ontario, maybe out of province, in Canada, or even internationally, we're really looking at the equivalent of these particular courses that are required from the Ontario curriculum. And our admissions team does have a chart that is able to convert curriculums from outside of Ontario into the equivalencies. And so it basically just has to look at each of these required courses and your own particular curriculum and be able to make the match. And you can reach out to us if you want to verify that those courses are in fact equivalent. And so for Ontario, we're looking at advanced functions, calculus and vectors, chemistry, physics, and English. And then we do require one additional 4U or 4M course. We take those 6 courses and we combine them. That's what gives us the admission average that we will be examining. Each course has a final minimum overall grade of 70 in each of the required courses, and then a minimum final overall average of 85% to meet any conditions on your offer. Now, all engineering programs really that we have, but in general across the board, nowadays they do have programming components to it or coding components. Most of the programs will be starting at an beginner level and then advancing fairly quickly. But for software engineering, it is starting at a more advanced level. And so students applying to software will need to demonstrate some previous knowledge of surrounding programming or coding. It could be anything from a grade 11 or a grade 12 computer science or programming course, or it could be participating in something like a hackathon. Or if you have some real world work experience, maybe you've developed an app for a company as a side project. Those are all areas that could demonstrate previous knowledge in programming. Now, the academics are what I would consider to be, and our admissions team would consider to be a qualifier. We want to make sure that students are going to be successful in the classroom, but oftentimes we consider the admission information form to be the differentiator. So when the students, the incoming applicant pool is fairly close, it's often the AIF that will make the difference on who may or may not get an offer based on availability in the particular program. So consider the AIF a supplemental application where you get to talk about everything that you've done outside of the classroom, from extracurriculars, work experience, any community involvement, accolades and awards. And essentially what we're trying to identify are transferable skills that will make you a good employee, that will help you be successful in a co-op environment, as it's mandatory to complete those 5 of 6 co-op terms to be able to meet the requirement for graduation. You can list one alternate engineering program that we will consider you for on your AIF, whereas you only get one choice on the OUAC. So if you don't get your initial initial offer then of choice, then we'll go back to the AIF and we'll consider you for a secondary program. All AIFs are mandatory and they're reviewed and scored, and that score is added on top of your admission average as part of the overall admission score that we use to determine who will get an offer. And then the AIFs also impact scholarship decisions, which don't occur until May. Now, the second component that we've added fairly recently to help students further differentiate themselves from the applicant pool is the online video interview. It is optional, but strongly recommended. And it gives students a chance to gain additional bonus points as part of their admission score, which will help in the admission process in their particular case. And again, it's another opportunity for students to display the knowledge of their particular program that they're applying to, which is very important. So on the AIF and online video interview, anytime you get an opportunity to talk about this specific program you're applying to, why you're passionate about it, why you want to pursue it, I would certainly recommend doing so. The video interview is only 2 questions. They're both verbal, and you can start the process anytime you want. You will get an invitation to sign up for the video interview during the application process. And it's really typical interview questions. And so for students looking to prepare, I would just recommend Googling the top 50 interview questions, answer them having your particular program in mind. And again, demonstrating knowledge in your particular program whenever you get a chance to do so. The online video interview and the AIF are both due in mid-February each year. Admission averages is another big question that we get, and we do not have particular cutoffs. And so students at a certain average aren't automatically gain entry, and that again ties back into the co-op element. We want to make sure students are successful, as I mentioned, but then it's the admission score which determines admissibility and not the admission average. So we do have probabilities that will help give prospective students an idea of where they might fit and the probability of getting an offer, but there's a lot more determination that goes into that than just the average in itself. And all probabilities are based on the previous year's applicant pool. This is an example of our current probability chart that we've put together, and we've grouped them in as far as 3 different levels of competition, or how difficult it is to get in based on your academic average. Now, I do want you to look at this chart from a bit of a different light. It's very easy, especially if you look at biomedical and software engineer, and you see that if you have a grade range of 95% or higher, that only means you have a 50% chance of getting in. And that, even though those programs are more competitive from an academic component, think of it as that academics aren't everything. It's not the sole determination on who gets an offer and who doesn't. And so students that are below the 95 will receive an offer. And depending on the situation, if an AIF isn't complete, students with an average of 95 may not get an offer. So it ranges quite significantly within each program, but this chart is just an example of how academics aren't necessarily everything when determining who gets an offer. As far as applying to the University of Waterloo, and this is universal across all Ontario universities, is applications will go through the Ontario University Application Center. And so once you complete your application through there, we will receive all the information. There are tutorials and lots of videos on the OUAC website, but there's also a lot of information available on YouTube as well. And as I mentioned previously, you do get one choice on the OUAC, but if you're interested in the School of Architecture, that can also count as a second choice. And that's because admissions for architecture is going to be different than from engineering as far as what's required. And so previously mentioned, you get one secondary option on the admission information form. All applications are due by February the 1st. I would certainly recommend completing the application, starting it, working through it much sooner than the night before the deadline. It will give you a chance to go in and revise certain elements, including the AIF as well. Now, the OUAC does recommend that students apply by mid-January, but we will accept offers all the way until the end of January. And then once you apply, then you'll get a link internally from us inviting you to complete the admission information form. With regards to timelines, we don't offer rolling offers. We have rounds of admissions. And so we collect all of our applications following the applicant deadline. And we make the first round of offers in late March. So currently no offers have gone out for this applicant year. And it's about half of all offers, around half of all offers will happen in that first round. And for that, we can use grade 11 marks if we don't have an updated mark in a required course for grade 12. In early May is when the second and final round of offers will go out. And that's when we're using all grade 12 marks for that. So all offers are final, and you do have to accept an offer by the June 1st deadline, and that's pretty much universal for most universities.
Awesome. So next, let's talk a little bit about the student life Waterloo has to offer. So apart from a great education, Waterloo has a lot of extracurriculars and sports teams and design teams that you can get involved in. And I highly recommend that you take advantage of all of these opportunities as they will help complement your educational experience. So within the faculty, there are a number of different clubs that we offer. For example, Engineering Student Ambassadors, the Waterloo Engineering Endowment Fund, Iron Warrior, Engineering Stage Band and Engineering Plays, as well as the Women in Engineering group. And a lot of these allow you to kind of meet fellow engineers, participate in Eng chats and different open houses and different events and things like that. Apart from that, within the university, there's also several athletics opportunities, so both competitive and intramural. There's music groups and drama productions, Imprint, which is a campus newspaper that you can help write for, as well as Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association, WUSA, and over 160 clubs. With that, there are also over 20 different design teams that you can join. So design teams are basically a great way where students come together to work on a project. So this can be anything from hardware related to software related. And it's really easy to join. There's no experience required. Say you're just curious about learning how to make a hardware product, or you want to gain some electrical experience, even if you're not in that like specific engineering discipline, you can totally join. The commitment is up to you. So definitely if you're looking to just be a general team member, you can attend like general meetings. But if you're looking to be more of an executive leader, then that's kind of where you'd be required to give a greater commitment. But overall, it's an amazing collaboration opportunity, and you can kind of form teams within teams, meet various different individuals from a variety of different engineering programs, participate in great networking opportunities and different international competitions. And also in E5, which is the Engineering 5 building, there is the Cedra Design Center where kind of each student design team has kind of like a garage. So you can kind of walk by and see a lot of the team members just working like daily on various projects. So some like build canoes, some build cars. It's very interesting to kind of just take a look and ask questions, and like if you're interested, even join. So with that, these are a list of all of the different design teams we have to offer. For me personally, I decided that I wanted to be a part of two teams, so Industry 4.0 as well as U Waterloo IISE, specifically because they were focused on management engineering. And during my first 2 years, I was able to take on a leadership role and be able to kind of help design a competition and work with a number of different students to kind of create a successful competition. So if anyone's interested in learning about any of these teams, you can definitely look at the link posted above on the slide and just kind of read about what all they have to offer. And finally, we have the Engineering Society. So the Engineering Society, or ENGSOC, is the largest and most active student body on campus. It really represents students' opinions to the university committees, councils, and governing bodies, as well as provides student services to improve the university experience, along with promoting engineering traditions. So ENGSOC is really the place to go. For example, if you have you want to say something, you want your voice to be heard, they're great people to help bring about that change. Or if you want to be a part of the student body and participate in a variety of different events to offer, that's also the place to go. So it's kind of a one-stop shop for all things engineering. And with that, I'll pass it back to Ryan.
Okay, so we will have a Q&A portion at the end of this presentation, but first I'd like to go over some of the most commonly asked questions that we get from future applicants and their families about specifically admissions. One of them that's quite common is about repeated courses. And so we strongly recommend that high school students do not repeat a course. It's not going to better prepare them from university, and data has shown us that students that are repeating a course tend not to do as well at the end of their first year within engineering. If you happen to repeat a course, we're not going to take the second mark received anyway. We're just going to use that first mark. So you're better off working on the other required courses and the rest of your curriculum and try to get as high a grades as possible in those. Now, if you are below the minimum 70% requirement for a required course, then that would disqualify you for admissions anyway. So in that case, we will accept the second grade received in a repeated course, but there's going to be a significant penalty on that. And it's 5% in your overall admission average, not just the course that was repeated. And so it's very rare that a student repeats a course and it ends up helping them academically. We do believe that IB and AP courses are great university preparatory courses. And so it can certainly help you in the scoring on your AIF, your admission information form, if you have taken previous IB or AP courses. Now, the catch with that is that oftentimes when transcripts go through the OUAC, we don't really know which courses are IB or AP because they convert them. And so you want to indicate which courses that you've taken were in fact IB or AP. We do not provide credit in university for IB or AP courses, and that's simply because of the Canadian Engineering Accreditation Board's stipulations that we cannot provide credit, high school credit, towards a professional degree in university. And if there's any other enriched courses that you've taken outside of IB or AP, certainly let us know on the AIF. Courses outside of day school, this is a big one, and it's certainly become a lot more complex, especially with the Ontario curriculum and the current pandemic environment. And so there's a lot of considerations that we look at when evaluating courses outside of day school. As long as the course is accredited by the Ministry of Education or the governing body in your particular area, we will accept it. We do understand that in the Ontario curriculum, especially, there is a requirement for online courses, as well as courses that are offered virtually, again, because of the current environment. And those will not be penalized. However, if courses are being taken outside of a regular full-time curriculum, specifically the required ones, for an unfair advantage because you have more time to put forward to a particular course that you are, maybe unsure about, and then you have a later course load in another term because the one course was removed, and it's really give an unfair advantage. In those cases, there can be a penalty applied. Now, if there's extenuating circumstances, just like for the repeated courses, or if there's particular reasons why a course is not taken during a regular full-time curriculum, just let us know on the admission information form, and we will take that into account.
And finally, just some ways on how to get involved while still in high school. So first, we have our Hive Mind free tutoring program, which is a free tutoring program for students struggling in physics, calculus, and chemistry. This is definitely a program I would have loved to have taken in high school because physics was not my forte. We also have our grade 11's Girls Conference, where girls get to explore just Waterloo Engineering and what it's all about with hands-on workshops and challenges. It's also a great way to meet future women in engineering. We also have our Catalyst Summer Program, which is an opportunity for students to build, test, research, and present their projects that are rooted in engineering and STEM. They also focus on qualities such as leadership and problem solving, which are great qualities to have going into engineering. And finally, we have our ESQ leadership position, which is where students can become a leader in the Engineering Science Quest summer camp, which runs throughout the summer.
Thank you, Leah and Seher. Now we have a lot of opportunity to answer questions that you might have. And so with that, we will get started. One question that is very common, and that I know a lot of our prospective students are curious about, and it's one that frequently comes up, is what was it like going through the application process for Waterloo Engineering? And do you have any tips or tricks that you might be able to give prospective students? So we'll start with Leah for that one. Leah's one of our younger students. She's in first year. Seher's one of our upper year students, but Leah's gone through it more recently. So I guess we'll get your opinion first, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, of course. So I found that the Waterloo engineering process kind of just for the admissions, it was quite long, and it gave me a lot of time to kind of figure out what I really wanted to put on my AIF and what I want to highlight, as well as kind of mentally prepare myself for the video interview as well. I started in November, and I had up until the mid of February to finish everything, which was really great. For me personally, I wanted to get everything done just before exams started in January. So I made sure to finish my AIF and video interview back in December. But I know that a lot of my friends and fellow students were also just applying and finishing up their applications after exams. So it was really easy, and there was a lot of flexibility with regards to time.
Good to hear. Thanks, Leah. Seher, what about you?
Yeah, for sure. For me also, like the process was extremely smooth sailing. There was a lot of information available online, and definitely you can even contact, the recruitment team and anything to clear any doubts you may have. But yeah, super smooth process in terms of the AIF. Definitely like really figure out what exactly you want to put on it, how you can highlight the best version of yourself, as well as your video interview. Definitely recommend everyone to do that. I think it's like a great experience to kind of help you prepare even for, later on when you're going to be doing co-op interviews. So it's a great way to get your feet wet with that anyways.
Good. Thank you, Seher. Continuing with admissions, and I think both of you touched on it a little bit, but to get a little bit more specific, do you have, would you be able to share what you put on your AIF specifically, and any advice to students with regards to what sort of extracurriculars they might be able to do that would help on the AIF? So Seher?
For sure. So for me, I actually had no work experience going into university. However, I did a lot of like volunteering, extracurriculars, a lot of different things like that. So that was kind of like the central highlight of my AIF. I was able to kind of talk a little bit about all of my different experiences and the specific skill sets that I learned along the way, and how that would help me be successful at Waterloo. I also would encourage everyone to really talk about kind of why they're interested in the engineering discipline they choose. Because Waterloo is direct entry, you kind of have to know like exactly which program you want to go into. So you can kind of avoid like considering switching later. So for me, I really knew that I was interested in management engineering, and a lot of what I talked about was why I would be a good fit given my current skill sets, why I was interested, and I think that's what like helped me be successful through the application process.
Great points, Sahar. And you've set up a couple questions that I'm going to follow up with your answer that I think are going to be valuable. And they've actually popped up in the Q&A. But first, Leah, any information about what you put on your AIF and tips on filling it out?
Yeah, of course. So for me, I did have a part-time job in grade 11 and 12. So I was able to highlight that experience and what I've learned from that, just touching on like customer service skills or kind of problem solving skills, as well as I touched on my extracurriculars. So for example, I was in band for 4 years in high school. And through that, I learned like collaboration skills and leadership skills and even attention to detail. I would definitely recommend just reflecting on the volunteer experience or even extracurricular experience that you have gained, because you do learn a lot that you might not know that you do in your extracurriculars.
That's a great another great point, and I like that you talked about the different extracurriculars that you're involved in and the skills that those provided and how they can be transferable skills in an employable environment or a co-op environment. And I just want the audience and everybody watching us today to know that your extracurriculars don't have to be involved in engineering. They don't have to be involved in a particular area. It really, anything that you're passionate about, anything and everything. It could be the farthest thing from engineering. If it's something that you've taken a lot of time in and there's the opportunity to demonstrate those transferable skills, that's the sort of information on the AIF that is very important, and it doesn't have to be engineering related. So Sarah, I'm going to start with you again on this one because you had mentioned it previously, and this is kind of going back a little bit further back from the actual application process. And this question that came up was, how did you figure out what kind of engineering program that you wanted to go into, and are there any tips that you can provide?
For sure. So I did a couple of things. I went to the OUF fair, but I guess now it's all virtual. So I guess, attending workshops and webinars like these are great to kind of talk to upper year students. We're currently in the program. Like I used to prepare like a list of questions and kind of go into it, kind of figure out like what courses they offer, what kind of co-op specific engineering streams go into more commonly, things like that. There's also like a wealth of information online. So definitely take the time to research, watch videos, do all of that to really figure out kind of where your skill sets align. There's also a great engineering quiz, and I think it was linked in the chat below. But yeah, take that, and like if you answer those questions, you can kind of see like what kinds of engineering disciplines you're leaning towards. And for me, I always knew that I was kind of interested in both like business as well as like software development. So I tried to find like a good match that would kind of help me kind of be successful in the future. And I'm really happy with kind of how that all worked out.
Great. No, that's really good to hear. So Leah, how did you decide on environmental engineering?
Yeah, of course. So I was really inspired by my grade 9 and grade 11 science teachers, specifically my chemistry teacher, just because she had been in the environmental sciences kind of department or field, if you would like to say. But I kind of switched gears into engineering just because I really liked the whole kind of innovation and kind of like problem solving aspect of it, as well as my dad, he is a mechanical engineer and he was heavily influenced me into the field. But yeah, I would definitely recommend using the Eng chats. That's something that I think is super beneficial, and that's something I would have loved to have in high school. You get to kind of just interview or just chat with a current student in the field that you would like to or you're thinking of going into, and kind of get what they're like, you get their raw experience, which is really great.
Good. No, that's very interesting. And the different perspectives that students have when they choose engineering and the reasons for it, whether you have a relative that's an engineer or maybe it's something that you're not even really aware of, or maybe you've discovered that you enjoy problem solving, and that's a big one. Certainly if you're a problem solver and that's something that is, you're passionate about, or something that you enjoy doing. Certainly, engineering could very well be a direction that would be good for you. Now, this will be a question for me, and it kind of ties into what I just asked you, is how do you choose an engineering program? So this question that came up was, can students switch programs once they start at Waterloo? That's a tough one, and it's always case by case, depending on the situation. However, I will say that in most cases, it's not going to be possible, and in some cases, it's completely impossible. There are opportunities to transfer depending on the program. For instance, electrical and computer engineering have a similar first year and a half, and so you're not really missing anything. You kind of move back and forth. And there might be some opportunity in some other departments as well. The one piece of advice that I will, or piece of information that I will provide, is that when you are applying, don't apply with the mindset that you will be able to switch. Like I said, it's very difficult, and it depends on the situation. Most cases, it's not going to happen just because there isn't space in the program that you might be switching into. We're usually always at target. But also, if you do switch, because we are direct entry, that you'll be having to start right back in 1A, or your first academic term. You're going to be starting that process all over again, because you would have missed those programs specific courses that we have as being a direct entry program. So good question. Certainly, it really demonstrates why doing the research is going to be extremely important for all students prior to application. Okay, so moving on, we're going to talk a little bit about co-op. Leah, can you tell me about this is your first co-op term, so it's nice and fresh in your memory. Can you tell me about how finding your first co-op job went for you, and what that process is like?
Yeah, the co-op process was definitely, I would say, a little bit overwhelming at the start, but then you definitely get into routine with kind of going onto our online platform called Waterloo Works, checking the jobs there, kind of shortlisting which ones you think you might be interested in. And the way I did it was that in the morning, I would shortlist the jobs that I was interested in, and at night, I would kind of apply like to one or two that I felt comfortable with. But the co-op process and just applying was definitely really smooth. I thought I was going to be kind of left on my own just to apply, but that was completely untrue. In your first year, and I believe throughout the next few years, you also take a co-op course or a class, which just gets you kind of on the mind, or sorry, it gets you in the mindset of applying for co-ops, and it makes sure that you know kind of when the next cycles are coming, when deadlines are coming up, and it also gives you great resources to get like your resume critiqued, as well as mock interviews.
Okay, so here, can you elaborate a little bit on your first co-op, and then because you're going to have 5 co-ops under your belt, can you give us an idea of the progression from your first co-op, the other co-ops that you've taken, and where you've ended up for your most recent co-op?
For sure. So essentially, like, applying for co-op is like a pretty straightforward process. Initially, for first year, even I found it quite overwhelming because I was taking 6 courses, and basically applying for co-op is kind of like another course. But it really depends on like kind of the time that you want to put into it, the effort you want to put into it. But as Leah mentioned, it's like super simple in the sense that you go onto a Waterloo Works job portal. Employers will put a bunch of postings right there. You can kind of scroll through, read which ones are of interest to you. There's also a great way to filter by your program. And then from there, you can kind of create a simple application package, which will consist of your grades, previous work history, as well as your resume and cover letter if you so choose to add it. And with that, like, you can just kind of send that entire package right through the system. And there's kind of different timelines and different number of applications you can apply for in different rounds. So I won't get into the specifics, but basically it's like there's all this information given to us by the co-op center, and you can kind of follow that. And it's a fairly simple and easy process to do it that way. For me personally, like I mentioned at the start, like I knew that I was always interested in technology, but I really didn't know. And management engineering is kind of one of those degrees that I have friends who are into product management. I have friends doing hardware and robotics. I have friends doing software. So it's kind of all over the place. It's up to us to kind of take the degree in a way we so choose. And so when I started off, I decided that I wanted to do more of a business and project management role to kind of get a holistic view. So my first co-op was at RBC, where I was doing kind of more project management kind of work. From there, I moved into kind of more technical roles. So I joined a startup called Tribal Scale, where I was working as a QA automation engineer for a variety of different applications and projects. After that, my third co-op was at Stratus 360, which was a Salesforce company. And there I was a full stack developer, building out full stack web applications. And then after that, for my fourth co-op, I went back to RBC, but for their Amplify program, which is essentially a 4-month-long hackathon type co-op, where I was working as a software developer and a team to build a product from scratch and kind of bring it to the competition and present to executives at the bank. And then most recently, I'm in a data science role. So I'm doing a lot of work with data ingestion and provisioning. So it's definitely been a varied journey, but it's allowed me to get a very diverse skill set along the way.
It sounds like you've got, yeah, some great experiences, some different opportunities. That's outstanding. And certainly you'll be able to apply that to a future career as well. And that's kind of the one thing, going back to what I'd mentioned previously, is Waterloo Engineering is a unique education. And it's the sum of the differences that make it unique. One of those, and we're not the only one that offers work experience or co-op, but the style of co-op that we have is going to be a little bit different in that you will alternate between 4 months of co-op and 4 months of academics, essentially throughout the entire career. And so having that opportunity to test drive, different careers and different industries is going to be a huge advantage with the 6 different versions of co-op that you'll take. And the amount of, and I'm sure, especially you, Sahar, the amount of interviews that you'll do, you're probably pretty well versed in the interview process, I would imagine. But actually, yeah, tying into that, what sort of resources are available for students for co-op? You mentioned a bit about the co-op fundamentals course, but Sahar, are there any other resources that you've taken advantage of that are offered within the university?
Yeah, so there's SECA, which is our co-op center at the Tatum Center. And basically they offer a bunch of different resume building and mock interview workshops that first year students, people looking for their first co-op, can take advantage of. And it's really great to kind of, go one-on-one and like have people like help you proofread your resume or give you those extra tips on how to write cover letters or do mock interview. So during my first time, like I definitely took advantage of that and got some great tips before I actually started job hunting. So I would recommend doing that. Also reaching out to upper years, a lot of like engineering like programs I know for management, the upper years kind of help first years and second years kind of proofread their resumes or prepare for mock interviews. So yeah.
Good. And Leah, did you take advantage of any of the resources that were available for students for preparing for your first co-op?
Yeah, of course. I actually scheduled in a mock interview like an hour before a real interview just to kind of calm my nerves down and kind of get into the headset or mindset of going through an interview. So it's really easy to kind of just schedule in an appointment. You just schedule them in a day in advance, and there's always spots that are open, as well as just to echo what Sahar mentioned, upper years did reach out a lot. I felt like upper years were reaching out to me more than I was reaching out to them, which was really great. Another great resource are your TAs as well, like throughout your classes. They're just a great way to kind of ask questions and see what it's like as an upper year, but also what their experience has been at Waterloo.
Good. And so tying into what Sahar and what was previously mentioned about the 4 months of academics and the 4 months of co-op and having to apply to co-op positions and go through that process while you're on an academic term, I can imagine it gets fairly busy at times. And so we'll start with Leah. Do you have any sort of time management tips or is there any advice that you could provide to the audience on about what you do to balance the academics and the co-op expectations.
Yeah, of course. So like I mentioned before, I kind of blocked out a little bit of time at the beginning and at the end of each of my days just to kind of go through Waterloo Works, see if there were any new job postings, and then see if I wanted to apply or if I had the energy to apply to any. Again, it was super easy to just kind of click the button and send the package, which was really great. But also personally, for me, I like to just write down to-do lists every day and just kind of check them off throughout the day. It gives you kind of a good sense of accomplishment, but you also get to see your progress. And then through that, you'll also see your progress kind of through the week. And you can say, oh, wow, this is what I've accomplished, and kind of feel good.
And that's great to hear. And just to reiterate what I had mentioned previously to the audience, Leah is in her first co-op and she had her first academic term last term. And so she is very fresh in this process. And so that's great to hear from a first year's perspective for the audience when they look into applying as they get closer to joining Waterloo Engineering. But Sahir, have you learned anything from your first year, and how is it that you've been able to balance? Is there any differences, or is there any sort of a method that you've come up with in balancing academics and co-op and time management in general?
Yeah. One thing like that I found was the biggest difference between high school and university is that, you know, in university, you're kind of given the deadlines and when your exams are and all of these dates like really early on in the term. So you can really have that time to plan in advance. So what I do within the first week when we get all of these deadlines and dates is I write it all down in a calendar. And then I kind of plan my schedule around that. So when Waterloo Works opens, it's up for, like for around a week or a week and a half, at least for main round. And so during that time, like I kind of carve out specific times. So complete all my assignments for that week in advance so I can kind of focus on applying for jobs because it can get like to be a tedious process because there are so many applications you have to do. And if you write cover letters and all of that. But yeah, just really staying on top of that work, figuring out kind of how you can balance both of those deadlines was key for me. And I found myself kind of doing that more as I went on, because initially I was a little overwhelmed and trying to figure out my way. But I think if you're just kind of like keeping a track of your time and kind of writing everything down, like that really helps.
Good. Well, thanks for providing that for the students. There are a couple questions that have popped up for me that I want to go over to make sure that we get that answered, and then we're going to finish off with a few more for the two of you. So the one question is, are there entrance scholarships available for applicants? Absolutely, there are. Most engineering students will receive an entrance scholarship, and that usually happens, you know, in the mid-May after that second round of offers. What about Leah or Sahir? Did any of you receive an entrance scholarship? Okay, so,
Yeah.
so that's good. And there are other scholarships that are available. Some of them you apply to. And we have a site online, Financial Awards, that you can have a look at to see what sort of scholarships are available out there. Now, the one thing that I will mention is the money that is gained through co-op is going to be greater than any sort of an entrance scholarship that you may receive elsewhere when you combine the 6 different terms. I think average earnings per term last year, you know, it varies per year, but when you group all the different years in together, the average earnings were around 15,700. And so multiply that by 6, and again, that's average, but you'll be making more in the upper years, and it might be less in your first co-op or whatever, but add that up and it really goes a long way to help pay for an education. Another question was, can students do concurrent degrees? And so the quick answer is everything's possible. Although with the engineering, you need to finish things in a set time. So you might be able to go on and do a double degree or a minor. Concurrent degrees are not going to be as possible because the cohort system that we operate on, where curriculums are offered during a set time and the entire student body in a particular program has the same course, especially in their younger years. Now, Sahir, do you know of anybody that's completed any sort of a minor or anything that's a little bit outside of the box with regards to gaining credentials outside of engineering?
Um, Not particularly. I know a couple people doing like some options, like the stats option or working towards the AI option, but not particularly anything out just because it's a little bit tough to coordinate
Yeah.
with. Yeah.
Yeah, and for students that are interested in doing minors or doing something along those lines, most cases you're going to have to, if it's outside of the options, you're going to have to stay longer at the undergraduate level. The one thing we do have for students that are looking to fast track or gain something in addition are accelerated masters. And what they are some of your upper year technical electives will end up being master's level courses. And so by the time you graduate, you've already got a certain chunk of your master's degree completed. So accelerated masters are certainly ways that students can progress in another area while they are studying their Waterloo engineering degree. And now the question, and this could be for me, but I'm going to also put it to the two of you, is do you recommend taking a wide variety of courses in high school? I really would say, I mean, there's the 5 required courses, and then it's your next best 4U or 4M. But I would certainly recommend doing whatever you're passionate about, whatever your interests are. I know because programming is going to be an element in a lot of or all engineering programs, that students that have a background in like computer science, it'll make it a lot easier once they're on campus. And other programs like nanotechnology or biomedical engineering, it's recommended that you take biology. But Sahar, Leah, we'll start with you. What sort of breadth or range of courses did you take in high school?
Yeah, so my grade 12 year was pretty, I would say, packed academically, just because I was taking 2 maths and 3 sciences, and then I was also in French immersion, so I had French and English, so that left me with 1 more course just for what I wanted to do. And I took music just because I had taken music for the last 4 years. I would definitely recommend, like Ryan said, a coding class if you can. That is something that I missed out on, but as well as personally, I would recommend an arts course if you can, just to kind of balance out your academic life and your creative kind of side of things. You always need a creative outlet, is what I say. And for that, for me, that was music.
Good. And Sahar?
Yeah, so in high school, I was actually in a math and computer science enriched program. So a lot of the mandatory courses I had to take at the time were all my like math and sciences and computer science related. And for all of the free electives I got, I was really interested in business. So I took all the economics, finance, accounting, just to kind of have that balance. So yeah, I would say just kind of explore what your interests are. It doesn't have to be strictly engineering, because even in university, you're going to be getting some electives. So figure out what you like and yeah, have that balance.
Great. No, that's really valuable information to have. I appreciate that. So we're a little bit over, but I do want to end with one question for the two of you. We'll start with you, Sahar, and that's what tips do you have for preparing for university? It's very relevant with this particular audience.
Yeah, for sure. I think definitely, attend workshops like these, webinars, do your research online, see if you can reach out to like upper year students in the programs that you're interested in. Definitely make a list of like a running list of all the questions you have and really figure out like what you're hoping to get out of the experience. I think that'll not only help you kind of figure out which discipline you want to go into, but like if it's the right fit for you, because I think that's like the most important thing in order to be successful all your life.
That's good. And Leah?
Yeah, I would definitely just like say, write down some of your goals or some things that you would like to achieve, like 5 or even 10 years down the line, and then strive for those goals and see what you can do and what to get involved with while you're still in high school, but also just kind of enjoy high school while you're still in it. It's a great experience and you'll get to learn a lot out of it. And once you're here, then you'll learn how to get through university as well. And it's not as scary as you might think.
That's great. Good to hear. I really appreciate the information the two of you have provided and your help with the presentation. I know it's been very valuable to the audience. As we wrap it up, I would like to remind the audience or let you know if you're not aware that coming up on March the 20th, we have the March virtual open house, and it's our version of what we would normally have as the March break open house. It occurs Saturday, March 20th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And you get a chance to talk to program representatives in the direct messaging area We also have presentations that are available to view. And then we have live video Q&A, one surrounding admissions for engineering. And we're going to have some students involved in that, as well as the Dean of Engineering, so opportunity to ask her some questions. And then we also have architecture, so anybody who might be interested in architecture. The O'Donovan director, Ann Bordelow, is going to be attending the Zoom live Q&A from 11 till 12. And then we've got a student life portion following that. Sorry, the architecture's one is from 12 to 1. And then the student life is going to be from 1 to 2. So you get to talk to students and really get a sense of what they enjoy about the program, ask any questions, similar to an INS chat, but it's just occurring live. So March 20th, I would certainly recommend that. For any questions beyond this, you can certainly email enginfo@uwaterloo.ca. That's enginfo@uwaterloo.ca. Or you can contact myself. It's pretty simple email, ryan.peer@uwaterloo.ca. So first name dot last name @uwaterloo.ca. And so my name's listed there. You should be able to write it down. So feel free to reach out. But all in all, I appreciate everyone joining us, and thank you to Saharan and Leah for offering up your time. It's been much appreciated, and I hope everybody has a great evening.